So today we're going to be going over Parsley. Parsley is a templating language inside of Zesty, and you can use it for outputting data, making custom endpoints, or for just straight up templating. It was originally designed as a template language to reduce the fact that, like, back in the day you used to have something like PHP to build a page, where here it was all encompassed just to work in a specific document and be able to embed dynamic content live. So we have a screen to go over some of the things we'll be talking about today with Parsley. First, we're going to talk about what Parsley is, then we'll get into the basics, looping, conditionals, and then string functions. So it'll be a bit of a primer of what Parsley is. So first, to talk about what Parsley is here. Let's go into my working mode. Awesome. And let's just open up the Parsley page, just parsley.zesty.io, and I'll post it into the chat. Just a moment here. Okay, chat in here. I'm now reading chat. I hope you guys like the sound effects. Let's get a nice little one there. And so Parsley, again, just talking about it's the templating language. There's parsley.zesty.io. You can learn here. You can hit start, and we'll just kind of show you real simply. Let's make this a little bit bigger. It kind of looks like, you know, what, like Vue uses the double brackets. You know, some languages use these. People call them mustaches. Essentially, like, it's common in templating language. You run this, it's going to output the relative content to the page. So that's the concept, and what you would have between the content here, let's just like chuck an H1. This will render an H1 and then inject the content in between. So Parsley kind of predates stuff like React and Vue. It's more about its server-side rendering, which it happens. And you can just straight up write HTML around the blocks. You don't have to worry about having any sort of npm run or anything like that. This is just going to execute out of the gates using Zesty Web Engine, the way we deliver JSON and HTML and all that. So again, you can visit just parsley.zesty.io. You can play with this. This is a live active REPL. And I'll just show you that there's just a few examples that we go through here. And we'll cover some of these examples, but we're going to do it in a live instance, and we'll share the code base for that. Let's see, I think it's just GitHub, and go to our GitHub. You can check out Zesty's GitHub. A lot of open source code here. It's really useful. Live streams examples is where we'll post some of this here. What's up, Giselle? Yeah, how about this one? You guys hear that one? It's nice, right? So that's posted there in chat. Some of this will make it there, but we're not working in Next.js. We're going to strictly work in Zesty. So inside of Zesty, we logged in. We're going to continue to use our Next.js website example here. And in Zesty you have content, so looking at just the home page straight up, we have content for this page. If I click preview, it's going to render this output, which I believe is like some sort of bootstrap template. So if you're not using headless with Next.js, you're going to have a view relative to the path, and this is our home page here. So this is the home page, and if we're using headless, right, we can view the JSON for it and build somewhere outside, but you can actually work fully in Zesty to build dynamic pages. There's a ton of benefits. And the one downside is you don't have access to the world of Node and NPM and all those packages, but you can rapidly build and template. So from content, we're going to click in the code, and over here you're going to see a number of code files, and these are relative to the things we've created, like badges, buttons, carousels. These are snippets that were created with this one because it was using Bootstrap. We're not going to really look at those. The one we're going to look for is going to be just homepage straight up. So let's click at homepage. We include a bunch of these starters for Bootstrap, but we don't need any of that. We're also including jQuery and whatnot. All this other stuff we also don't need, so we're just going to drop that. We're literally going to drop all this, and we're going to start from a blank page, and we're going to hit save, and we're going to refresh the view. see what we get. We get nothing. And we're going to start by typing hello world. If you guys have any questions, please ask in chat. So we're going to go over the basics of Parsley right now. Let's see if we could just jump in. We're going over what is we're actually now down to the basics. So let's move it. Ready? Look at that. It's like it's animated. Pretty cool. All right, so we're going to be working in Access Basics of Parsley now. So let's just jump inside of a view file. The code, one of these, there it is. We're inside of a view file. We're just going to type hello world. We're working on the home page view, and we're going to refresh our page. We're actually going to kick open, build our workspace a little bit differently here. Cool. Hello world over here. And with Parsley, if you're inside the editor, you can open up this, we have this fly open drawer, and it's going to tell you what you have access to. So it's telling me I have access to this title. All right, and let's refresh the page. And Next.js start example. We're not working in Next.js right now. So let's just go change, let's jump really quick into homepage content and just change this to homepage h1 title. Save that, we'll refresh, and we'll see that Parsley dynamically grabs that on every render. So we'll go back to editing the code. You saw we have hello. So this is the basic access of Parsley is just opening up the Parsley brackets. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you can all see it. Excuse the interface looking funny when it gets big. Let's see if we go like this a little bit. Make it less wonky. All right, that's better. All right, we're going to wrap it in H1, and we're accessing our Parsley. And how Parsley goes is this is relative to the template you're on, relative to the content that template loads. So this is the home page, so it's saying this is relative to the home page, and I'm accessing title, and I'm going to output this. So let's save this here and refresh, and we'll get our homepage H1 title now. And if you look in content, that is what our content is, right? Hit save, refresh. Parsley now is dynamically accessing this and injecting it into the template. So let's get subtitles is fun. Subtitles are fun. Let's correct that. Subtitles are fun. So let's work on getting this subtitle. It's going to be the same exact motion. We can cheat by opening up this file information, and that one's called subtitle. So I can just copy and paste this right in, hit save, refresh, and we're going to have our home page with subtitles are fun. So again, base action, these are the basics of Parsley. Let's make sure chat isn't ringing here. And let's continue on talking about just accessing more of the basics. So we'll see we have an image here too. And now images, this is going to be interesting. So let's wrap this subtitle in a paragraph tag just to start forming the page. All right, refresh. You should see it's in a p tag. Don't really recognize it as a p tag, but it's all good. So let's see what happens if we try to reference an image, and what does Parsley do. So Parsley outputs you what we call a Zesty unique identifier, a ZUID, and it's useful to have access to. But if you wanted to actually render the image, what we type is just get image here, and this is now going to output. Is it going to get the image? No, it's going to get the URL reference to it. So in order to fully output in the template, we're going to type image source and like that. So now we're accessing the Parsley inside the source. And again, this looks like it could be React, but this is not React. What Parsley is going to do is going to inject. It's going to translate Parsley into a string and inject the string into the document as it renders. So if we hit save and refresh, we're going to get our image, which is Zesty logo. Got a little quote there hanging. And if I inspect this page, if I view the source, I'm going to see that it injects it just straight up as content. So by the time it renders, it's just injecting the code here. So if I wanted to take advantage of Zesty's on-the-fly image editing, you can just use the query parameter here because it's just a string, and then I could say something like width equals 200 or something like that, right? Oops. Refresh. Looks like maybe we need to give it something smaller so we recognize the change here. All right, boom, we change, and there we go. We get a coin right there. We get a double coin. So what's cool is that remember it's just outputting the string reference, and then you can then add the query params after the fact. So if you want to add alt text to this, lat text, alt text, you can also do the same thing. You can say this dot title image, right? Refresh the page, and if we inspect, we now have dynamic alt text too, which is very valuable. So you kind of can create your own alt text as well. It's very useful. So now the way Parsley and the templating rendering works, talking about the basics, is that there's always a file called the loader file in every build, and loader outputs current view by default. So this is your, think about it as like an app shell. So current view is it's going to automatically find that it's loading the home page and inject the home page template, which we've been working on. But if I want to wrap it in a div like so, and let's just add a horizontal rule so we recognize that it's wrapped in a div. You'll see that this horizontal rule, it's very faint because of the way it's loading, but you can see it loading there. And it's nice because now any page you visit is going to be wrapped in this particular div. So this is like a good opportunity to, you can make a navigation here or something. And I'll just say this, navigation. And I'll also make a footer, because why not? Throw another horizontal rule and drop a footer in the mix. And we'll refresh the page. Now we see we have a navigation and a footer and what's loading in between. So it's wedging it inside of. So this current view then just exclusively loads, the home page view here, which is definitely useful. So those are the basics of Parsley. Let's go back to our notes here and see where we're at. All right, we're going to move down into each looping. So Parsley's job is to access the content in the instance which you're working in. So if you have content that has multiple items, you want to loop through them. And on this particular build, I believe we have an article set up. So let's get back into the working environment here. And we're going to click into content. We're going to look for articles. So we have articles here, and you can see I have 3 articles. And let's inspect an article and see what we're working with. So each article has a title and a body. It also has an image. So it is important to know what the schema is that you're working with. So let's click into the schema. And the schema name is articles, very simple. Sometimes the label can differ from the name, and the name is what we're going to reference in Parsley. So let's go ahead now and jump back into our homepage code. And let's see if we can list out articles. So let's just drop an H2 in here. We're going to write articles, my articles. And let's just see if this outputs. Cool, my articles. So let's make a unordered list. And we're gonna write what we call an each loop. So you simply type each articles as, and you name it here, so as article. So when you say as, this is going to be the reference to which you are going to access an article. So say each article is article. That's the simplest form of an each loop. And then at the end you have to end the each. So it's a little bit of a funky behavior of Parsley, but you have to end the each loop. Typically in a programming language this would be done in a function, but you have to tell the template that the each is ending. So now when we're inside of the each loop, we can just simply look to output article dot title and refresh. And if you notice that I am now outputting what should be 3 article titles. So let's verify that by wrapping this in an LI. So we got it wrapped in an li now. So each article titles each article is this article, and we're outputting article title. There, we get one of those for a mess up for language, and you can see each one, but then we got a couple coins there. We're looping through each article, and we're getting the title. Super cool. All right, so Parsley makes it really easy to create a link, so we can just say hrefs. So we're creating an anchor tag. We're going to wrap the anchor tag around the title. And inside the href, we could simply just say article.getURL, and that acts like a function. Hit save and refresh. And now each one of these are dynamically linked items. So if I click into this, it's going to launch my article, which is a picture of Jax. Hello, Jax. So that is the basis of working with each loops, and we're gonna go a little bit deeper in the each loop. So we'll go back. Let's look at, we got this fancy thing now. We'll look at our notes. So we're working with each loops. We've showed the basics of an each loop. We're gonna now show how you can manipulate an each loop to get specific data. Because if you have thousands of items, maybe you only want 3. Maybe you want to filter them. So let's get back into working mode here, and let's talk about how we can trim this down to, let's just say we want 2. So the way the syntax works in Parsley goes each articles as article. You could then drop something like limit 2. So I only want to get 2, and let's refresh the page. So now I only have 2 articles. Very cool. And you can like kind of treat it like pagination too. You could say show me 2, remove the first one, so you start at 1, and it should say article full moon, now best article I've written, which is kind of cool. So we can split these up. Let's just write 2 just to show how we can split up. And we'll say this one's going to be, let's create a title called top article. And I'm going to paste the code I just wrote, which is each articles is article, but instead of limit, I'm going to go 0, 1 to get the first one, and over here I'm going to start at 1 and get 2. So I'll have my top article and then my other 2 articles here. So I'm just getting the first one here. So other things could be done inside of our each loops, where you could say, you can have a where clause. So you could say, so I'm gonna try, this is like gonna act as a filter. I could say where article.title like, and it will say the word moon, right? Because we got the so we use a percentage sign as a wildcard and see if I can get something that has the word moon in it. And I'm wrapping these in wildcards that lets me say anything can come after, anything can come before. So this is like kind of effectively acting as a search or a filter. So let's save and see now if I get any articles. And let's refresh. And the answer is no, I don't get any articles because I'm starting at 0. I mean, I'm starting at the second, like 1, starting at the second one of the array. So let's get rid of my limit and see if I get any articles. And I do. I get the moon article because I'm saying where it's like moons. So you can do things and say where not like moon, right? And get any articles that don't have the word moon in it, which is very cool. And also powerful, but let's go back to, let's change this to called my moon articles, and that way we can leave this code up. That way we have the code example with a couple of these. So we'll say where it's like moon, and we'll refresh. So my moon articles, and then I'm gonna go ahead and copy this again, and just so top article, and I'll say recent articles, and we're gonna put the syntax back to do that limit here. 1, 2, like that. So there's a couple ways to play with each loops inside of Parsley. Any questions from the chat? Anybody familiar with each loops? I'll be watching to see if anyone asks. So that's eaching. Very cool. You can do all sorts of wild stuff with it. You can do nested each loops. You can put conditionals in there. So now let's jump into, let's look at our notes here. And so we covered the basics, we covered each looping, and now let's move on to conditionals. So a conditional is something like an if statement. You can say if this value does this, or if the day is that, or you can say if whatever you want, if 1 equals 2. So let's play with some conditionals here, and let's jump back into the working session. Cool. Let's just make sure I got my setup over here. So coming back to the working session, we're going to work on conditionals, and how I can do a conditional is as simple as just saying you open up Parsley here. You can say if 1 equals 1, OMG 1 equals 1, smiley face. And then same thing like the each loop, you have to end. You have to deliberately end. So you say end if here. So let's refresh the page and see, does 1 equal 1? Oh my god, 1 equals 1. Does 1 equal 2? Let's find out. It does not. So you can then inside a conditional write an else statement to have a fallback, and I'll just write hello world. So that's my fallback. So you can write an if else, and you can chain these together as well. So let's go back to 1 equals 1, refresh. Oh my god, 1 equals 1. Does 1 equal 2? It does not. Hello world. So there is an example of if output, and I don't know if the text is too small here, so I'm gonna crank it up a little bit more. See if we collapse this sidebar, open it up a little bit more. You know, if you guys are having a hard time reading the text, it's hard for me to tell because the stream example I see is like a little box. So that's a if, successful if. So now let's see if we can if content, right? We could say if this dot title here, right? And then we can output the title. So let's like output h1, say this. And one thing to note with Parsley is what you just saw me do something different is, and I'm going to make this a fallback title real quick before I get into that. Fallback title. Is that when you want to access Parsley within a Parsley statement, you use single brackets. So if you want to reference a value inside, say, an if statement or inside a each loop, you use single brackets to do that. All right, so let's just see, now we're saying if this dot title, and we'll give it a refresh. Homepage h1 title. So we're checking to see if the title exists here, very simply. So we can go back to edit. Let's see, we're not full moon. We don't need that one. Let's go back to editing the homepage. And let's just ditch the title for a second. Hit save. Oh, I think title is required, so we can't ditch title. Subtitle is not required, so we'll try it with the subtitle. We'll get rid of subtitle. Hit save. We'll go back to editing our code, and we're going to change this to subtitle. I'll put that as subtitle. So refresh, fallback title, and a fallback subtitle technically. So what's cool is that if subtitle isn't outputting, we can have a fallback title by using a conditional, by checking if there's a value for the subtitle. This fallback subtitle. And if we go back to our home page, my awesome subtitle, we're going to add the subtitle back into the content. And then just refresh the page, and now that we have a subtitle online, we're seeing it. So when can you use this, and when is it useful? It is useful for exactly what we're doing, and you can, not need a fallback for it either. So let's look at, up here we're using subtitle with a p tag, and if I inspect the page, I'm getting my subtitle here. But what if my subtitle doesn't exist? All right, let's get rid of our subtitle again. Delete. Save. And refresh. My subtitle doesn't exist. But what I get now, if I inspect my code, I get an empty p tag. I don't want an empty p tag. Nobody wants an empty p tag, right? Am I right? Empty p tags are no good. So we're going to jump into the code and we're going to write that logic right around it. So we're going to say, we're going to just literally take that p tag and punch it in here. And we're going to end if here. So we're going to say if subtitle, we're going to output the subtitle. And that's it. And there's no other backup clause or anything. So if I refresh the page now and I go to inspect where it was going to be, notice I'm not getting an empty p tag anymore. This could be done with anything. It could be done with images, titles, instructions, anything you want that comes out of the content. So definitely has high use for definitely building the template pages. You can also use it when you're building JSON as well. So that is a conditional. Let's go back to the notes, take a look at where we are. And so we've covered conditionals, we've covered each looping and the basics. We're now going to talk about string functions and what we can do to manipulate inside of Parsley. So Parsley, essentially at the end of the day, it's going to inject content, whether that be instructions, an image URL, rich text, plain text, numbers, you name it. It all comes, everything comes forth as a string at the end of the day. And what you deliver to the user is a string, or what you deliver the document, you know, an HTML document body, a JSON body, at the end of the day is just a giant string, right? There's nothing special about it. The syntax is what's special, whether it be HTML or JSON or XML or, you know, calendar format, you name it. Everything is a string at the end of the day. It's delivering text, right? Even an image is a string that is hashed that is able to convert itself into an image, right? It's encoded and then it displays as an image, but at the end of the day, it's delivering a giant body of text. So it's the same concept. So Parsley is injecting text. So everything you access in Parsley that you have final output on is a string, so you have the ability to modify that string. So let's jump into the working session again and take a look at modifying a string. So we're going to go back to h1 title and we're going to add a little guy here. It says, you know, h6, a modified title here. And we're going to use the title. Let's hit save. So we should see two titles now. Modified title. This is it here. We're actually going to go like this. We're going to go modified title. I save a little space in the page. Alright, modified title, homepage title. It's not modified. The most simple one you can do is substring, which is going to work just like the limit was. And if we want to show the first two characters of homepage, we got HO. So substring lets you pick where you want to start. If I start from 2, I should get EL. So I'm starting from the second character, or I'm starting from the third character technically. And let's see what we get. Me. Oh, homepage. It's not hello world, it's homepage. So that's right. We get, so starting from the second character, get the first two characters. So I get me, and you can get really funky with this. I could create like a new word. So let's get the word page out of homepage. This is gonna be great. So we'll just go, we need 4 letters starting at the 4th letter, hit save, and it should say page me. Page me, everybody, huh? Yeah, it was pretty good. Pretty good. We hit the crowd, yeah. It's a good joke. Alright, so this is like a string modification. There are other modifications too, and you can just search zesty.org is where we have the documentation right now. And there's a Parsley index here, which is quite useful, and this will tell you about all the different things you have access to. So you can get into different functions off the string, and they're going to be listed here. So you can, there's one called trim zeros. That's something that could be useful depending on the application, but subwords is a pretty cool one. So you can cut down something like this. This looks like it would have 3 words, and we can sub the words. Let's see what happens with subwords. We'll modify title again, and we're just going to say subwords. Let's try 2. And we just get the first 2 words. Let's go for 1. And we're just going to get the first word. So when would you use subverbs? It's extremely good when using for if you want to just like cheaply output an alt text, and you have a really long string, but maybe the first like 5 words of that sentence is of value. And this one will do subwords too, right? We'll save and refresh, and now we can look at the value of the alt text, and it's just a homepage H1 image. It's actually better than H1 title, so H1 image. So if I wanted just to get the first word here, home page, and refresh, now my alt text is just homepage image. So pretty much I'm leveraging the content that was entered by my content editor and filling out the page in a more appropriately way. So those are string functions inside of Parsley. So checking chat, it's been pretty quiet, but we've had a steady amount of users watching. But if you have any questions or want to see anything about Parsley, I'll take a few minutes just to see if there's any questions, and otherwise we'll begin to wrap it up. So while I'm waiting for that, we're going to look at a recap. We're going to go back to our notes and just recap what we've been doing. So we went over what Parsley is, we went over the basics of Parsley, we covered how you can each loop through content or data from Zesty using Parsley, working with conditionals, the basics of each of if statements, and the basics of using string functions. And Parsley is documented at zesty.org. You can also learn about Parsley through the REPL at parsley.zesty.io. Yeah, so a question from chat says, in the string is subwords considered any text between spaces? That is correct. So subwords is just going to assume any block of characters is a word. It doesn't know. It's pretty dumb. It doesn't know if you spelt it correctly or whatever. It's going to just automatically split it by the spaces between the words. So that was the question from chat. The subwords look at spaces, and yes, that's what it does. So awesome. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. Check us out. We get another stream coming in on Thursday. I believe we're covering some topics on Next.js. If you have any interest in more Parsley, just write in chat, and we'll catch you on Thursday.